Hello, New Hampshire. I'm Joe from the New Jersey Organizing Project, and behind me are some of our core members, and behind them is Barnegat Bay. We wish we could be up there with you. However, we have a major storm coming, so we thought it was prudent to stay behind and take care of our property and our families. So since we can't be there, we have Teia Suarez, who has a few words of who wants to share her Sandy story that also deals with climate change.
Hello, my name is Teia Suarez. I'm from the Jersey Shore, more specifically Mystic Island. Mystic is a small backfilled swamp with little bungalows on concrete slabs. It's not a rich area. People eat crabs and fish from the bay because sometimes it's all they can afford. This community was also very hard hit by the Hurricane Sandy. When it hit, I was 13, just entering my freshman year, and as a senior 3 years later, the storm is still a huge part of the Jersey Shore and everyday life. For months after the storm, small thunderstorms caused my mother to have panic attacks and me to have nightmares. It took a great emotional toll. We lost family, friends, and a sense of security. At the time, my father worked at a real estate agency in Bay Head, but the office was completely destroyed by Sandy, causing him to lose his job. My house was greatly affected. We had 3 feet of bay water and sewage that overflowed from the sewers. At first, my family was told that only the bottom of our house was damaged, and that we would only have to fix the lowest 3 feet. Because we could not afford workers, my father and I went into the house and tore out the walls, flooring, cabinets, and anything else below the waterline. We followed all the rules step by step, but the steps kept changing, getting bigger and bigger until we were practically climbing. And at the final step, we were thrown back to the beginning when they declared our house unlivable and told us it would have to be completely torn down. For 4 months, we lived with my grandparents and then moved to a rental on another Sandy-affected island. All the houses on our block were abandoned, and the entire town was practically empty. No streetlights, cars, or people. Everything was in ruins. Houses were cracked open like eggs, displaying the lives of whoever might have lived there, and for a year and a half, no one came home. People simply did not have the means to navigate the labyrinth of red tape or to finance any repairs. After almost 2 years, my family was able to return to our new house, but we had nothing. We slept on the floor because we didn't have beds, and our clothes were in stacks around the room because we didn't have dressers or hangers. Today we have things. Sometimes I'll reach for something, then remember that it was lost in the storm, but we have couches and beds and hangers and curtains, but it's different now. I look at my house and I feel grateful for having a place to live, but it was not worth the costs that we paid, metaphorically and literally. My best friend and her family did not evacuate for the storm because they didn't have anywhere to go. They had to be rescued, but her grandfather, who I considered family as well, could not handle the cold water or the environment in the shelter. He became very ill and passed away shortly after Sandy. Another example is our next door neighbors, an older couple married for 30 years. They could not afford to fix the damage, so they continued to live in their house. Moisture from the flood caused mold to grow. The woman had COPD, and after a particularly bad attack from the mold, she passed away. A month later, after severe depression, her husband died of a heart attack. These people are just 2 of the many examples of people dying because they are poor. So many people are still not home yet because they can't afford to fix their homes. And people like my family who are home but can barely or can't at all afford to keep their houses. All 3 people who live in my house are currently employed, but each month we are $900 short on utilities, car payments, insurance, mortgage, etc. My mom has taken multiple loans against her pension, and we are still slowly drowning. Consider the fact that my family and my experiences are not isolated incidents. Whether better or worse or practically the same, everybody, rich or poor, was affected. The only difference is that the rich are healed, while the poor and middle class are practically destitute. There are hundreds of poor and middle class families that lived at the Jersey Shore. Perhaps they inherited houses that their grandfather built in 1920, or bought small bay bungalows in the 60s and watched as the neighborhood became overdeveloped and rich around them. In fact, the majority of the Jersey Shore was middle class average people who now can't afford groceries. There are programs designated to help, such as REM, FEMA, and flood insurance, but even though we fight hard to get what we deserve by working with state senators and holding press conferences, they have failed to offer any substantial assistance. My house was completely insured by flood insurance, and they only paid out a small portion of the money we were owed, enough for a nice car perhaps, but not enough to demolish and completely rebuild a house. From FEMA, we were promised rental assistance, but were denied so many times that we had to use the money designated for food, utilities, and our mortgage to pay the landlord. After we moved home, we were given an opportunity to reopen our FEMA case to try to get appropriate financial assistance from the flood insurance that was supposed to be evaluated and decided upon after 90 days. But after 182 days and 182 phone calls, we still have no answers. All of this is due to an extreme weather event. Sandy would have happened regardless, but according to scientists, warmer seas and raising sea levels fueled the storm, making it able to travel further inland, with higher surges in the east to west movement, which is the opposite of how storms normally move in this area. This greatly affected the Jersey Shore, an area that already had a large foreclosure issue, and it is a clear example of how climate change is a current and urgent issue. Thank you.